It wasn't supposed to be his moment. The summit was filled with global powerhouses, presidents, billionaires, foreign ministers, and elite media. The air inside the Geneva Global Peace Forum buzzed with polite handshakes and backdoor diplomacy. Cameras rolled. Scripts were rehearsed. It was just another high-level gathering where real stories were often lost in long speeches. But when Ibrahim Traoré, the 36-year-old interim president of Burkina Faso, stepped onto the stage, something changed. The room shifted. The silence wasn't planned. It was felt. He didn't read from a teleprompter. He didn't start with formalities. Instead, he held up a folded photograph, creased, torn at the edge. "This is my uncle. He was gunned down outside a mine run by foreign companies," Traoré began, voice trembling but steady. "They called it collateral damage. We called him family." People leaned forward. Even Donald Trump, seated with folded arms in the front row, lifted his head. Traoré wasn't giving a speech. He was telling truths, and not the kind people were ready for. In that moment, no one knew this was the start of a moment the world would never forget. And that hug? It wasn't even imaginable yet. Traoré reached into his jacket and slowly unfolded a piece of lined paper. The cameras zoomed in. His hand shook slightly. "It's a letter," he said, "written by a 14-year-old boy in Burkina Faso. His name was Mamadou. He wrote it the night before he died in a collapsed gold mine." Gasps rippled through the room. "President Traoré, if you ever get this letter, please tell the world we are not machines. My brother is only 9 and already works underground. My mother cries every night. We just want to go to school, like the kids on YouTube." Some diplomats turned away. Others wiped their eyes. A few were visibly uncomfortable. Traoré paused. "I met Mamadou once. He asked me for a pencil. Just a pencil." He held up a small, chewed yellow pencil from his pocket. "I keep this with me, because I failed him." Donald Trump looked down. Cameras caught it. The room, full of world leaders, was now full of pain. This wasn't politics anymore. This was humanity laid bare. And no one, not even the most powerful man in the room, could look away. By now, Traoré had everyone on edge. Some heads of state fidgeted in their seats. Others stared at the floor. But Donald Trump? He didn't blink. He watched every word, every tear, like he was hearing a story he'd never been told before. A story that didn't fit into headlines or slogans. Traoré stepped away from the podium and walked to the edge of the stage, the pencil still in his hand. There are thousands of Mamadous, in Africa, in Asia, even in the US. He looked directly at Trump. "I'm not here to argue. I'm here to ask, how did we let this happen?" Silence. Traoré raised the pencil again. "Is this too small to matter? Is this child too far away to love?" The translator hesitated, then repeated the words. Trump leaned back. His jaw tightened. A rare moment of vulnerability flickered across his face, caught on live TV. That one question was beginning to crack something deeper than politics. It was starting to hit the human side of every leader in that room. The audience didn't know it yet, but this wasn't just a speech. It was a build-up to the moment that would shake the world. And that moment was coming soon. As the silence dragged on, a voice broke from the back of the hall. It was a woman, elderly, American, press badge clipped to her chest. "My son died in Iraq," she said softly, rising to her feet. "I thought he was protecting freedom, but I've just realized maybe he was protecting a lie." The room froze again. She walked slowly toward the stage, tears streaming. "I've never heard a leader speak like this. Not one." Traoré stepped down and met her halfway. He didn't ask her name. He simply opened his arms, and in a moment that cameras caught from every angle, a woman who had lost her son in America's war hugged an African president who had lost his people to the world's silence. There was no applause, just breathless quiet. Trump sat motionless. His fingers tapped against the chair's armrest. Something was happening, internally, something he wasn't used to showing. This wasn't about sides anymore. This was about truth. And truth, when spoken gently and bravely, has the power to melt even the coldest walls, even the ones built around a heart like Trump's. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Then, darkness. Gasps echoed. The entire summit hall went black for nearly 10 seconds. Emergency lights buzzed to life, painting the room in cold red shadows. Security scrambled. Attendees murmured. But Traoré didn't move. He stood calm at the center of the stage, face lit dimly by a single spotlight. "This is what it feels like in my country when the foreign trucks leave the mines," he said. "No lights, no hope, just silence." People stilled. Traoré raised his voice. "They take our gold, our uranium, our cotton, then cut the power and disappear. We're left in the dark while the world shines." Trump's eyes widened. A flicker of memory, perhaps. A briefing. A deal. Traoré continued. "You talk of greatness. I talk of grief. But I believe we can meet in the middle." He looked straight into the camera. "If you have power, share the light." And just like that, the lights returned. Not just in the hall, but in the hearts of many who had once stopped caring. Something was shifting, visibly, emotionally, and the man sitting in the front row was starting to crack. Backstage, before the speech, Traoré had been offered a rewritten script. "Too emotional," they told him. "You'll make them uncomfortable." But he folded it and slid it into his pocket. "I'm not here for their comfort," he whispered. "I'm here for our children." And now, on stage, he had done exactly that, made the world deeply uncomfortable. Trump leaned toward one of his aides. "Who is this guy again?" he whispered. The aide fumbled. "President of Burkina Faso, sir. Military leader. Young. Anti-French. Speaks like a poet." Trump nodded, but something in his face had softened. Something human. As Traoré sipped water and paused for breath, the cameras caught Trump doing something no one expected. He leaned forward, not to interrupt, not to argue, to listen. And to the world watching live, it wasn't just strange. It was stunning. Because the most unlikely man in the room was slowly being moved by the most unexpected voice. And what would happen next? No one saw coming. As Traoré regained his breath, the next slide on the screen behind him appeared. No statistics, no graphs, just a photo. A little girl, wearing a faded red dress, sitting barefoot on dry earth, holding a small plastic bowl with no food in it. Her eyes, wide, hollow, searching. "This," Traoré said, his voice shaking, "is Awa." He looked around the room. "She died from hunger 3 weeks ago. Not in the 1980s. Not in some far-off war. 3 weeks ago." Murmurs spread. "She lived 20 miles from a French military base. A UN food drop passed her village. Twice." The room stiffened. "I don't bring this photo to guilt you," Traoré continued. "I bring it so you remember her." He paused. "If a girl in a red dress can die from hunger, while the world spends billions on war, then what are we really leading?" For the first time, Trump's eyes watered. He quickly blinked. The camera caught it, and viewers around the world, watching live on screens, started to cry. Awa had no voice, but tonight, she spoke through him, and hearts began to break. At the edge of the press section, CNN's senior political correspondent, a veteran known for never showing emotion, put down her pen. Then, without a word, she removed her headset and began to cry. The live stream didn't show her, but someone nearby caught it on a phone. It later went viral. Even the press couldn't hold back. She would later tweet, In 30 years of covering world politics, I have never felt this shattered. That wasn't a speech. That was a mirror to the soul. On stage, Traoré had said little more than truth, but it was the way he said it. His tone carried grief. His pauses carried weight. His stories, real pain. And still, no arrogance, no blame games, just honesty, courage, humanity. Leadership is not noise, he said. It is the ability to feel the suffering of someone you'll never meet, and still lose sleep over it. The translator could barely finish reading the words out loud. Her voice cracked. Even security guards near the exits began to shift uncomfortably, visibly affected. And Trump? He leaned forward, hands folded, jaw tight. The storm inside him was building. Right before Traoré walked onto the stage, he had taken a call. It was from a mother in Burkina Faso. Her son had survived a militia raid 2 nights earlier. The boy had hidden in a rice sack for 6 hours. He won't speak, the mother said. He just stares. Traoré closed his eyes and whispered, "Tell him. I will speak for him." Now on stage, he remembered that promise. There is a boy watching this right now, silent since violence stole his voice. He turned to the camera, speaking not like a president, but like a father. You are not broken. You are not invisible. You are not forgotten. Somewhere across the world in a dusty village, that boy stared at the screen. His lips moved. He said one word. Ibrahim. In that very second, the live stream chat flooded with crying emojis, prayer hands, and broken hearts. People were writing, "I'm crying like I've lost someone I love." How did a man from Burkina Faso just break the entire internet? But inside the summit? Trump stood up. The crowd gasped, and Ibrahim Traoré slowly turned to face him. What happened next broke every headline. Trump didn't say a word. He simply stood and began walking, slow, deliberate steps, toward the stage. Cameras clicked furiously. The crowd held its breath. Was he leaving? Protesting? Confronting? No one knew. Traoré, still clutching the pencil from Mamadou, stood tall. He didn't flinch. As Trump reached the steps of the stage, his expression changed, from stern to something the world rarely sees on his face: confusion, pain, humility. He raised his hand, then paused. "I've been called many things," Trump began, microphone picking up his low voice. "But today, I feel like a student." You could hear a pin drop. "I didn't come here expecting to be moved," he admitted. "But I was." And then, with eyes locked on Traoré's, he added, "I don't agree with everything you've said, but I felt every word." A single tear rolled down someone's cheek in the front row. Then, without warning, Trump climbed the stage, stepped forward, and opened his arms, and embraced Ibrahim Traoré. For 10 full seconds, the world stood still. 2 men, different in age, race, culture, and power, stood in a silent, powerful embrace. Not forced, not political, real. Some called it a miracle. Others, a shift in history. Traoré closed his eyes. Trump patted his back slowly. And in that moment, the cameras weren't just capturing a photo. They were capturing hope. Someone in the audience whispered, "This is not a summit anymore. This is a turning point." The video clip went viral in seconds. Trump hugs African president after tearful speech, the most human moment of the decade. Even critics admitted the hug wasn't staged. It wasn't political theater. It was 2 men, one powerful, one courageous, meeting at the edge of truth. And when they finally pulled apart, Trump said softly, "Let me help you tell these stories." Gasps again. A moment that no one planned. A moment no one will forget. A moment that would soon reach every phone, every screen, every heart. As they sat side by side on the edge of the stage, Traoré reached into his pocket again. Another letter. "I didn't plan to read this," he said. "But now, maybe I should." It was from a retired U.S. soldier, a black man, a father, a man who had fought in multiple wars. He wrote, "I once believed I was fighting for justice, but I never fought for children like Mamadou. I never fought for girls like Awa. I left the battlefield, but I never stopped bleeding." The room was dead silent. If you ever meet someone like President Traoré, tell him I'm sorry. Tell him I admire him more than I admired my own generals. Traoré folded the letter slowly and looked over at Trump. The former president's face was pale. "I know that soldier," Trump whispered. "He served under me." Then he added almost too softly, "Maybe this world needs less power and more pain like yours." And with that, the final words of the speech were spoken, not by Traoré, but by Donald Trump himself. The screen behind them flickered once more. No title, just a video. A young boy, no older than 7, stood barefoot beside a collapsed hut in Burkina Faso. Wind blew hard. Dust covered everything. With his tiny fingers, he bent down and wrote something into the ground. The word, Traoré. The boy smiled, then looked up at the camera and whispered, "He is the one who speaks when no one listens." The room went still. A translator repeated the words, trembling. Then the video cut. "I don't need applause," Traoré said. "I don't need medals. I need you to see these children before they disappear." He looked directly at Trump. "You were once a businessman who saw opportunity. Look now, not at profit, but at people." Trump's eyes were red. The hug wasn't enough anymore. Something had cracked wide open. He turned to the room and said, "I came here thinking I'd give a speech. Instead, I've been given a soul." A few people in the audience began to cry, not softly but audibly, and on YouTube live streams around the world, comments flooded in like waves. "I've never cried this hard watching politics." As the summit wrapped up, Traoré prepared to step off stage. But then, his phone buzzed. An unknown number, U.S. area code. He almost ignored it, but something in him said, "Answer." "Hello?" he said quietly. The voice on the other end trembled. "I'm calling from Georgia," the woman said. "My son, he saw your speech online. He's 14. He cried like a baby." Traoré smiled gently. "Tell him he has nothing to be ashamed of." She hesitated, then said, "He hasn't cried since his father died in Afghanistan. He always kept it in. Until now." Traoré closed his eyes. "Do you know what he told me?" she continued. "He said, 'Mom, that man from Africa made me feel like Dad didn't die for nothing.'" Tears rolled down Traoré's cheeks. He looked out at the audience again, but now he wasn't speaking to leaders. He was speaking to mothers, fathers, children. "We were born in different countries," he said, "but grief sounds the same in every language." And as he hung up, even Trump looked away, his lip trembling, his fist clenched. For once, he was speechless. As Traoré stepped away from the mic for the final time, no one clapped. Not out of disrespect, out of shock, out of being emotionally wrecked. The silence was too full of meaning. Then, out of nowhere, someone began to sing. A child's voice, clear, soft, powerful. A girl from the Ghanaian youth choir, sitting in the upper balcony, had stood up. She sang an old African lullaby. One word repeated, "Tena," rest. One by one, the entire hall stood and listened. Leaders, reporters, security. Even Trump, hand on his chest. Some wept openly. Others simply closed their eyes. Because for the first time in a long time, this wasn't about policy or borders or politics. This was about something far more rare. Dignity, humanity, and truth. As the final note echoed across the ceiling, Traoré whispered into the mic, "Sometimes you don't need a revolution, just a song, and someone who's willing to listen." Then he stepped down from the stage, and in that single moment, the world was changed. Here is the final and most emotionally intense part of your story. Chapters 16 to 18 of Donald Trump Hugs Ibrahim Traoré on Stage, after his final words moved an entire nation. These last chapters are crafted to break emotional walls, inspire a tidal wave of admiration, and trigger massive viewer engagement, likes, comments, and subscriptions. Chapter 16. The Note Left Behind. As the summit came to an end, the stage emptied. Delegates whispered. Reporters rushed to file their stories. But Ibrahim Traoré quietly remained seated in the front row, staring at the empty podium where he had just bared his soul. He reached into his jacket once more, not for a letter, for a small, hand-folded note, written in pencil, faded from age. The handwriting was shaky. The name at the bottom, Mamadou, the very child who had died holding his pencil. The note read, "If anyone ever hears my story, tell them I tried." Traoré turned the paper over. Nothing more. But for him, it was everything. He placed it gently on the table in front of him, then walked away, leaving it behind, as if passing the torch to the world. A nearby camera caught the image. It went viral within hours, with the caption, "He left us with a message. Now it's on us to carry it." People across continents began writing in their own languages. I tried. A movement had started, and a child's whisper was now echoing across the planet. Chapter 17. The airport scene that shook the internet hours. Later, Traoré arrived at the airport. There were no bodyguards, no red carpet, just him, carrying a small brown bag and a folded coat. He moved quietly, almost invisible. But someone spotted him. Then another. And suddenly, the entire terminal stood still. Then came the first person, an elderly woman in a wheelchair, American, white, fragile hands. She looked up and said, "You gave me hope I didn't know I still had." He bent down, held her hand, and smiled. Then a child approached. Then a father. Then dozens of strangers, from every race, every background, forming a line. Some just cried. Some whispered, "Thank you." Some simply touched his shoulder as if to say, "We heard you." Security tried to usher him forward. He refused. He stayed until he had hugged the last person, and outside, in the pouring rain, someone painted his name on the sidewalk, using mud. That photo exploded online with 3 words written beneath it: "We won't forget." The world was watching, and for once, the world was listening. Chapter 18. The Final Camera Angle. That night, a drone flew silently above the summit center. It captured a wide shot of the empty stage, the flag of Burkina Faso, a single chair, and on it, the pencil. No guards, no locks, just that image. Millions reposted it. But no caption could capture the silence it carried. And just before the documentary footage ended, the screen faded to black. Then words appeared. When truth is spoken with love, even the loudest hearts must quiet. President Ibrahim Traoré. The video ended, but something else began. People in cities around the world organized pencil vigils. They didn't speak. They didn't chant. They just held pencils in the air. From school children in South Africa, to veterans in America, to farmers in India, to refugees in Syria. Everyone joined in silence, for Awa, for Mamadou, for the unnamed, and for the one leader who reminded us what it means to feel. Now take a breath. If you've made it this far, if your eyes are wet, if your heart is heavy, please like this video so YouTube knows this story matters. Comment the words, "I heard you," if Traoré's words touched you. Subscribe so you never miss stories the world tries to silence. Let's make sure Mamadou's pencil never runs out of ink. Ready for the title screen, thumbnail suggestions, or want this story turned into a cinematic script or voiceover? I can help next.